All right, let's close this show with a visit from a guy whose nickname is the Closer. He's from Bakersfield, California, has two Cup championships to his credit, as well as a win in the 2017 Great American Race, the Daytona 500. He drives for Stewart-Haas Racing. He is Kevin Harvick. Hey, Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us inside the wind tunnel.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Uh, I take a look at your career, and with 2 decades of experience, and with the transition that seems to be not only at Stewart-Haas Racing, but across the board in the Cup level, with the emergence of young drivers, you all of a sudden have become the alpha dog at Stewart-Haas. So I wonder, with all that experience, how much input and exchange do you have in trying to give some of these new drivers a lot of the wisdom that you had to learn the hard way on the racetrack?
Yeah. Well, that's the strange part. I think as you look at how these young kids come into the sport in today's world, it's trial by fire. And Chase Briscoe is the most recent example of coming into a situation where the cars aren't running like they're supposed to. You can't go practice. You're trying to learn the racetracks. You never run a race in your life that's as long as every race is on a weekly basis. And you immediately have to learn how to deal with everything that comes with trying to make race cars go faster, trying to deal with the politics of the sport, the media, the questions, and everything that comes with being in the limelight. So it's a tough world for a young racer to come in. And I think when you look at Chase Elliott and you look at Ryan Blaney and some of the other young guys that are going to be stars in this sport for a long time, it still takes them 3 or 4 years to get in here and really figure it out in today's world, because the Xfinity series is not that it's not competitive. It's just not like it used to be, right? You don't have, 10 or 12, 15 Cup guys there and learning where you actually measure up, to the Cup level competition and learning things at a more rapid pace than probably at a much slower pace than what you used to, because of the fact that those guys aren't in the field. And you really get a crash course in that when you get to the Cup level, because it just has a way of teaching you things, and you have to be in the middle of it in order to learn it. So it's it's a different world than what I grew up in and how I came into the sport. Because if there was a racetrack that you weren't good at, you just scheduled a test at it and you put all the data on there and you went with your teammate and you figured it out. And now, you have to go to the simulator and you have to look at video and you have to look at data and you have to try to figure it out through the SMT data and all the things, that come along with today's world. It's not necessarily on the racetrack. So it's, I think as you look at, where we are at Stewart-Haas Racing, we're obviously looking for some speed in our cars. But the things that I can tell you, you can survive until they figure that out. And survival is something that also has to be learned. And you have to learn how to race for 10th sometimes and be able to finish 10th, in order to get the points that you need, so you don't put yourself in such a hole that you can't get out of it. So there's a number of different ways that you have to be able to race. You can be the leader, you can be the 10th place guy. But no matter what, if you're wrecked, you're just going to be in the back and watching the race and trying to get a bigger shovel to dig all the dirt out of the hole that you're in. So it's it's a very difficult environment for young guys to come in and learn how to be winners.
You mentioned data. Certainly, there has been an increase almost to the point where there's so much more data, it can be overwhelming. That's a difference from when you started. But also, like Formula One, Cup cars and teams are now using war rooms that are off campus. How does Stewart-Haas do that? And can you kind of let us inside what a war room does and what it looks like?
Yeah, well, and I'm going to go back to the data, because I think that's one problem that a lot of the young guys have, is almost trying to do too much. And it's the throttle, brake, steering, and speed, and that's pretty much where you need to draw the line. And I, there are some instances where I'll get involved deeper than that, but from a driver standpoint, that's really as deep as you need to take it, unless there's a summary below the graph that you don't really understand. You need to make sure that you keep it as real as possible, and stay inside your boundaries of what you're needed for, as far as the equation and how it needs to be solved. So, that's one thing that can be overwhelming as a young guy, because sometimes they try to do too much. The war room is very interesting because of the fact that it's really an extension of the pit box.
Mhm.
And you have a very quiet, calm environment that allows the engineers and folks that are in this room to really analyze and look at things that you don't have time to look at on the pit box. And a lot of people ask me, why are you so quiet on the radio now? Well, I couldn't stand being in trouble all the time. It was getting expensive, and he just looked like a complete fool. So I try to say as little as possible on the radio. But really, if I'm needed, I'm needed for a reason. And if they ask me a question, it's because they need to have another opinion on what the direction is in a particular situation. So usually the war room has more information than we can process on the pit box. And for sure, I'm just in the way in the car, unless my job is to deliver the information about how the car is handling. If they have an opinion, they will ask me. But all the hardcore information comes from atop the pit box and in the war room, because they just have more information than I have inside the car. But it takes a long time to learn that. You want to have an opinion and you want to gripe about everything, but they're spur of the moment. You got to be. It's a decision that happens right now, and sometimes that war room comes into play more than not, just because of the fact that it's just a very calm environment with, it's Moneyball, right? They've got the graphs, they've got the facts, they've got the history of the race. And a lot of times it falls into that. And sometimes it's a guess, but it's a very educated guess as far as that goes.
I try to make it akin to what the viewers on Fox see when Larry Mack inserts his thoughts. He's got an abundance of that same data. Listen, before we run out of time here, I want to switch gears and look at Kevin Harvick away from the racetrack. We've seen your son go and follow in your footsteps. His karting career is on hold right now because he got injured. But I wonder, how hard is it for you to hold back and let him learn the same way you did, and that's by trial and error, and not try to become, and I'm not saying you would be a little league dad, but try to share with him your years and years of experience.
Well, that took a minute to figure out that balance between being dad, but also, I think it's really important to overload him with information. He has to be a kid, but in the end, you're also there to race, and you have to have the information, and you have to be able to process that information. And the go-karting world is no different than our world. There's information. There's brake sensors, throttle sensors, steering sensors, mile per hour sensors, and you can learn a lot. And he's very, very good at processing some of that information with the overloading of information that we give him. So I'm of the opinion that he has to be held accountable for his mistakes. It can't be all roses all the time, right? And like, you have to in my opinion, the kids don't get held accountable enough for the mistakes that they made, and then they don't progress like they need to. So I push him hard, and I feel like we've found a good balance in him understanding that I'm going to love him no matter what when we get done with this race. But while we're at this racetrack, we need to take it serious, and we're going to have fun. But we're going to have a lot more fun if you're winning than you are if you're running fifth. I can promise you that. It'll be much more rewarding winning the race than it will running fifth. So he's adapted to getting out of the go-kart, talking with the mechanic, coming in, looking at the video, and then coming back after about 15 minutes when dad has the computer out with all the graphs pulled up, because it usually takes me about that long to figure out how to turn the damn computer on and get all the graphs downloaded. And if something goes wrong, it's an hour. So, but we spend a lot of time looking at graphs, and I think for us, finding that balance between being dad, and being a good coach, and trying to teach him, but also hold him accountable for the things is a little bit difficult. But I think that balance is there, and I think for us, trying to manage him is the manage an 8-year-old is the biggest part of the process, and in order to make sure he's fed, make sure he doesn't wear himself out, make sure he's paying attention, don't leave the trailer, all the things that you used to think your dad was a complete jerk about. Now you're doing the same thing. So we have fun with it, and he enjoys it. That's the main thing, is he has to enjoy it, because the amount of information that we load on him is not normal. But we're going to continue to do that, because I think that's an important piece of the puzzle as you move forward.
Does he critique you after each race that you compete in?
So I came home from the Bristol dirt race, and he knows that I'm not, like, I wasn't super excited about going to the Bristol dirt race. I had a great time by the time it was all said and done, because it wasn't a dirt late model race or something that I had to throw the car completely sideways. I got to sit in my seat. I got to hold my steering wheel. I got to sit in the environment that I was used to on a weekly basis. And it wasn't anything like, I expected it to, and I had a great time. But I came home, I walked in the door, and he was sitting at the counter, and he looked at me and he's like, wow. He's like, you really, really suck at dirt racing, Dad. He's like, you might want to go practice a little bit more, because that was absolutely pathetic. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. I said that I get it. I said, this is your opportunity to critique me the same way that I critique you. So I'm fine with that. So and you know what? I could have done a lot better, Keelan. You're right. I could have done a lot better at the dirt track, and I will do better next time that we go back. So he definitely takes his shots every chance that he gets.
Hey, listen, we do appreciate your carving out some time to visit with us, and best wishes not only for this season, but for the seasons thereafter.
All right, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Kurt Busch, NASCAR champion driver for Chip Ganassi Racing, and you're listening to Jackaroot's Wind Tunnel. And you're watching it too, but just stay right here on the handsome guy, not on that guy over there.